it's Angela with the Mount Airy Public Library. We have a treat for us. Storyteller Brack Llewellyn is here with us to tell another fairy tale. And our story today is Rapunzel. All right, without further ado, take it, Brack.
All right, everybody gather in close and pay close attention. Use both your ears and turn on your imagination. And we're going to tell you a very old story, a tale by the Brothers Grimm about a young woman named Rapunzel. Now, Rapunzel was a beautiful and bright girl, but the thing that stood out most about Rapunzel was her long, beautiful hair. I mean, longer hair than you've ever seen on anyone else. Her hair went all the way from here over to there, and so beautiful and so strong. Everybody told her how beautiful it was and how much they admired her hair. Well, not exactly everybody. There was one old sorceress, a rather foul old woman, who didn't like Rapunzel at all and envied her hair, was jealous of Rapunzel's beautiful hair. Now, jealousy is a terrible emotion. It does no one any good, but this sorceress was full of it, and she decided to do something about it because she had a little bit of magic in her powers. So she cast a spell on Rapunzel one day without Rapunzel's knowing it, putting her to sleep for a short time. And when Rapunzel woke up, she was in a tall tower, not unlike this one behind me. The tower stretched high above the landscape on the sorceress's property, and the sorceress was there with her. There were only a few windows and no doors, no way out of this tower except by a window, and it was a long way to the ground. And the sorceress said that Rapunzel would stay there as long as she wanted her to, and she would visit Rapunzel every day, and Rapunzel would let down her long hair to the ground. The sorceress would climb up to bring her food, and that would be Rapunzel's existence for, well, who knows how long. So every day, the sorceress would come to the bottom of the tower and look up and shout, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." And Rapunzel would let her long hair fall out the window all the way to the ground, from the top of the tower all the way to the ground. And the sorceress would climb up her hair and bring her food and whatever else she needed. This went on for a long, long time, and Rapunzel grew very lonesome and rather sad living this existence in this tall tower. The only thing she had to console herself with was her beautiful long hair, which she brushed and combed and cared for every day. Then one day about sunset, a young man came along the border of the sorceress's property. Now, this man may or may not have been a prince. We don't really know, but we think that he might have been. And he was a young man, a single man, and had no wife, and was coming along by the property, and he looked up in the tower and was curious about it because there didn't seem to be any doors, but there were windows on a tall tower, and he caught a glimpse of Rapunzel through one of the windows, and he was immediately smitten with her. Oh, she was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen, and all those long flowing locks of hair. What a wonderful girl she must be. But how was he to get to her, to tell her? And as he was standing there, the old sorceress came by, and he ducked behind a bush to watch, and she walked up to the foot of the tower and shouted, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair!" And out of the window came rolling this long, beautiful mane of hair all the way to the ground. And he watched as the sorceress climbed up the hair through a window to take Rapunzel her dinner. And then in a few minutes, the sorceress climbed back down her long hair and went on her way, and Rapunzel pulled her long hair back up through the window. Well, the young man, who may have been a prince, waited until dusk, until it was dark outside and the sorceress was nowhere to be seen. And he very carefully crept to the foot of the tower, and he looked up, and he said, trying not to speak too loudly, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Rapunzel stepped to the window and looked down, and seeing this young man, was immediately smitten with him too. So looking about to see if the sorceress was anywhere to be seen, she unfurled her beautiful locks down the side of the tower, and the young man climbed up to see her. They began to talk and found they had many things in common. And the young man decided that he would come back every night after the sorceress had left. She came to see Rapunzel in the daytime. He would come in the evenings to visit her. And sure enough, he did. Every evening, after dusk, he would sneak his way to the foot of the tower and say, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." And she would gladly unfurl it. He would climb up to the top and they would sit and chat and share her dinner. This went on for some time, and the more time they spent together, the more in love they became. But the young man had no way to get Rapunzel out of the tower. He was puzzled by it. There were no doors. He could climb down her hair, but what was she to do? He went on his way, but one night, when he came to visit Rapunzel, he made a little too much noise. And when he did, the sorceress awoke from her sleep. And peering out her window, she saw him step to the foot of the tower and say, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair," and watched as Rapunzel did just that. And the young man climbed up, and the sorceress thought, "Aha! That's why she's so gleeful during the day. She has this visitor in the evening. Well, I'll put a stop to that." And she did. The very next day, when she brought Rapunzel her dinner, she called out, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." And Rapunzel did so, and the sorceress climbed up with Rapunzel's dinner and then told her what she'd seen. Rapunzel was terrified of what might happen, thinking the sorceress might harm her. And in a way she did. She took a scissors, a very sharp scissors, and she cut off Rapunzel's beautiful long hair to a very short length. Great trails of it laid on the floor at the top of the tower. And then, using her powers, the sorceress created a doorway and sent Rapunzel out of the tower, out into the wilderness to live. She was done with her. But then the sorceress decided to teach this young man, who may have been a prince, a lesson. So the sorceress waited at the top of the tower, holding on to Rapunzel's long hair. She waited till dusk, and sure enough, the young man, who may have been a prince, came back. He stood at the foot of the tower and said, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Only this time it was the sorceress who unfurled those long locks down the side of the tower. And the young man, not knowing, climbed up to the top, to be confronted not by his beloved Rapunzel, but by the sorceress, who scolded him and threatened him harm. He attempted to escape out a window, and as he did, he fell down to the ground, landing in a great bramble of briars. And those briars scraped across his face and took away his vision. He couldn't see. And he got up and sort of stumbled out across the property, back into the neighborhood, back into the countryside. And the sorceress thought, well, that's enough punishment for him, now isn't it? And she curled up Rapunzel's long locks, and she created a door once again in the tower and went about her business, thinking she was rid of Rapunzel for all time. And in fact, she was. Time went on, and the young man, who may have been a prince, wandered blindly through the countryside, finding food where he could, finding help where he could, and all the time missing his beloved Rapunzel, not knowing where she was. He wandered the countryside, and Rapunzel was wandering the countryside as well. But eventually, all things being as they are, they found each other one day. The young man, who may have been a prince, was wandering through the countryside seeking food, and he heard a voice singing. And he recognized the voice as that of Rapunzel. And he called out, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, where are you? Can you let down your hair and show me where you are?" And she cried back, "I cannot. I no longer have my beautiful hair. But I am here. I am here." And by the sound of their voices, they found each other. And when they found each other, they embraced. And this is the kind of gooey part. Rapunzel gave him a kiss. And this being a proper fairy tale, that kiss restored his eyesight so he could see her once again. And he looked at her, and tears ran down his face, tears of joy, to see his beautiful Rapunzel again, so lovely, even without her long hair. And the two of them went away together and married. This young man, who may have been a prince, took Rapunzel as his wife, and she may or may not have become a princess. And of course, as you might have guessed, they lived happily ever after. And all the years they lived together, Rapunzel let her long hair grow out again. And over the years it grew longer and longer and longer, until finally it again reached from here to way over there. And that's the tale of Rapunzel in the Tower. You have been a wonderful audience. Thank you.